Most people believe their biggest enemy is the world around them, their job, their past, their circumstances, or other people. But the real enemy has been with them every moment of their life. Quiet, invisible, constant, their own mind, the thoughts you repeat, the fears you obey, the doubts you protect, they slowly shape the prison you live in. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening. Your mind doesn't just observe reality, it creates your experience of it. When your thinking becomes negative, fearful, or uncontrolled, your entire life begins to collapse from the inside. Opportunities look like threats, change feels impossible, progress feels dangerous, and slowly, without warning, you become trapped by the very tool meant to protect you. This audiobook is about uncovering that hidden enemy, about learning how your mind sabotages your confidence, your peace, and your future, and how to finally take back control. Because the moment you stop believing every thought you think, your life begins to change. Chapter 1. The Hidden Enemy Within You. The hidden enemy within you is not something outside of your control or beyond your awareness. It is the constant stream of unchecked thoughts that quietly shape your emotions, decisions, and direction every single day. Most people spend their lives trying to fix their circumstances without ever realizing that the true battlefield is inside their own mind. Your mind interprets everything you experience, and when its interpretations become fearful, negative, or distorted, your entire life begins to follow that pattern. You may believe you are reacting to reality, but in truth, you are reacting to the version of reality your mind creates. This is why two people can live the same situation and experience completely different lives. One is guided by clarity and self-command, the other by doubt and inner conflict. The hidden enemy is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, repetitive, and familiar. It hides inside your habits of thought, your automatic reactions, and your emotional patterns. Until you recognize this enemy, you will continue fighting the wrong battles and wondering why nothing truly changes. Most of the damage this inner enemy causes happens gradually. You do not wake up one day defeated. You are slowly worn down by repeated thoughts of limitation, worry, and self-criticism. Each time your mind tells you that you are not enough, not ready, or not capable, it builds another brick in the prison of your life. Over time, those bricks become walls that feel impossible to break. What makes this enemy dangerous is that it speaks in your own voice. You assume every thought must be true because it sounds like you. In reality, your mind is simply repeating learned patterns, past experiences, and emotional conditioning. When these patterns go unchallenged, they become the script of your life. You begin to live according to what your mind predicts instead of what you desire. The hidden enemy thrives on this lack of awareness. The moment you begin observing your thoughts instead of obeying them, the enemy loses its power. The mind's primary function is to protect you, but when that protection system becomes overactive, it begins to sabotage your growth. It interprets change as danger and comfort as safety, even when comfort is slowly destroying your potential. Your mind would rather keep you familiar and miserable than uncertain and expanding. This is why so many people feel trapped even when no one is holding them back. The prison exists inside their thinking. The hidden enemy whispers that growth is risky, that failure is permanent, and that discomfort should be avoided at all costs. Over time, you start shaping your life around avoiding pain rather than building purpose. You make smaller choices, safer decisions, and quieter dreams. You begin calling this survival. But survival is not living. And the enemy is not the world, It is the voice that convinces you to settle for less. This inner enemy also feeds on emotional memory. Past failures, rejections, disappointments, and mistakes are stored in the mind and replayed whenever you attempt something new. The mind uses these memories to justify fear. It tells you that the past predicts the future, even though the future is being created in the present. When you believe these mental stories, you begin living backward. You allow yesterday's pain to control tomorrow's possibilities. The enemy does not need external force when it already controls your internal dialogue. Each time you let your past define your present, you strengthen the enemy's hold. Each time you choose awareness instead of automatic reaction, you weaken it. One of the most destructive tactics of the hidden enemy is making you believe that your thoughts are facts. Thoughts are interpretations, not truths. They are suggestions, not commands. But when you identify with every thought, you surrender your power. You become the servant of your own mind instead of its master. This is why emotional suffering often feels unavoidable. It is not caused by circumstances alone, but by the meaning your mind assigns to them. Change the meaning, and the experience changes. This is not positive thinking. It is mental discipline. You are learning to separate yourself from the noise in your head so you can respond with clarity instead of chaos. The hidden enemy also thrives on constant mental noise. The mind rarely stays quiet because silence exposes the illusion of its control. When the noise stops, you begin to see your thoughts instead of being inside them. That awareness is dangerous to the enemy because it reveals the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. This shift is the beginning of freedom. The enemy loses its grip the moment you stop believing everything it says. Awareness becomes your weapon. Attention becomes your shield. Choice becomes your freedom. Another way the hidden enemy controls you is through fear-based storytelling. Your mind constantly predicts worst-case scenarios, exaggerates risks, and magnifies uncertainty. These stories feel real because they trigger emotional responses. The body reacts as if danger is present, even when nothing is happening. Over time, you begin making decisions from fear instead of intention. Your life becomes a series of defensive moves. You stop chasing growth and start avoiding discomfort. The enemy convinces you that safety is the goal, when in truth growth is the only thing that creates real security. The hidden enemy also manipulates your identity. It attaches labels to you based on past experiences. I am not confident. I am bad at this. I always fail. This is just who I am. These identities become mental cages. When you believe them, you stop trying new paths because they conflict with the story you tell about yourself. The enemy loves fixed identities because they freeze your evolution. The moment you realize that identity is flexible and self-created, the enemy begins to collapse. Most people spend years trying to change their life without ever changing the system that controls it, their mind. They seek new environments, new relationships, new careers, and new goals. But they carry the same thinking patterns into each chapter. The result is the same problems in different forms. Until you confront the hidden enemy, every external change remains temporary. True transformation begins when you take responsibility for your inner world. The hidden enemy does not disappear overnight. It weakens through daily awareness, discipline, and conscious choice. Each time you challenge a negative thought, each time you choose courage over comfort, each time you act despite fear, you reclaim a piece of your mind. Over time, this creates inner authority. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. You no longer feel like a passenger in your own existence. You become the driver. As your awareness grows, your life begins to change naturally. You make clearer decisions. You waste less energy. You stop sabotaging yourself. The chaos inside your head begins to settle. Confidence grows because you trust your ability to respond instead of panic. Peace grows because you are no longer at war with your own thoughts. The hidden enemy is powerful only when it is invisible. The moment you see it, question it, and challenge it, its influence fades. Your mind becomes a tool again instead of a prison. And when your mind works for you instead of against you, everything in your life begins to rise. Chapter 2. How your thoughts shape your reality. Your thoughts are not passive background noise. They are the architecture of your reality. Every experience you have is filtered through the meanings your mind assigns to it. Two people can walk the same path, face the same events, and yet live completely different lives because their thoughts interpret reality in opposite ways. Your mind does not simply observe the world, it constructs your experience of it. When your thinking is disciplined, your life feels manageable and directed. When your thinking is chaotic, your life becomes confusing and overwhelming. This is why mastering your thoughts is not optional, it is essential. Your external circumstances will never rise higher than the internal narrative guiding your actions. The quality of your life is determined less by what happens to you and more by how your mind frames what happens. When you learn to guide that framing consciously, you begin shaping your future instead of reacting to your past. Thoughts influence emotion, emotion influences behavior, and behavior builds outcomes. This cycle runs constantly, whether you are aware of it or not. A single negative thought can create a wave of emotional tension that alters your posture, your voice, your energy, and your decisions for hours. Multiply that by days, weeks, and years, and you begin to understand how a person's inner world becomes their outer world. When you allow destructive thoughts to dominate, you slowly design a life that reflects fear, doubt, and limitation. When you cultivate disciplined thinking, you build a life that reflects clarity, confidence, and purpose. The world responds to how you move through it, and how you move through it is guided by what you believe inside. Most people believe their reality is shaped by circumstances. In truth, circumstances are only raw material. Your mind determines how that material is used. Your thoughts decide whether a challenge becomes an obstacle or an opportunity, whether a failure becomes a defeat or a lesson, whether uncertainty becomes paralysis or motivation. The same event can weaken one person and strengthen another, simply because their thinking is different. When you change your thoughts, you change the instructions you give to your nervous system. Your body responds by changing your energy, your focus, and your actions. Slowly, without force, your life begins to move in a new direction. Thoughts also shape your sense of identity. What you repeatedly think about yourself becomes who you believe you are. If your inner dialogue is filled with self-doubt, criticism, and limitation, you begin to shrink your behavior to match that image. You avoid risks, you suppress ambition, you lower your expectations. When your inner dialogue is disciplined, constructive, and self-directed, your behavior rises to meet that standard. You take responsibility, you pursue growth, you expand your potential. Identity is not fixed, it is constructed daily by thought. The mind has no built-in filter for truth. It repeats what it is given. If you feed it fear, it generates anxiety. If you feed it hope, it generates drive. If you feed it clarity, it generates confidence. This is why attention is power. Whatever you focus on, you strengthen. Whatever you ignore, you weaken. Your reality shifts in the direction of your dominant thoughts. Thoughts also determine how you use time. When your mind is scattered, time feels chaotic. When your mind is focused, time becomes productive. The same 24 hours can feel empty or meaningful, depending on the mental state you bring to them. This is not philosophy, it is lived experience. Your thoughts influence your relationships. The assumptions you make about people affect how you treat them. Your expectations shape your interactions. Your beliefs about trust, respect, and worth quietly guide every connection in your life. Your thoughts even influence your physical health. Stress, tension, and fear generated in the mind manifest in the body. Calm, purpose, and confidence create stability and strength. The mind and body are not separate systems. They are one continuous feedback loop. Most suffering is not created by events, but by interpretation. When you learn to challenge destructive interpretations, you reduce unnecessary suffering and increase your capacity to handle life. The more control you gain over your thoughts, the more control you gain over your direction. You stop drifting. You start steering. Thoughts are not the problem. Unconscious thoughts are the problem. Awareness transforms thinking from a weapon against you into a tool for you. When you master your thoughts, you master your life. Chapter 3. Why you believe the lies. Your mind tells you. You believe the lies your mind tells you because the mind speaks in your own voice, and anything spoken in your own voice feels like truth. The mind does not announce when it is guessing, protecting, or exaggerating. It simply presents a story, and because that story feels familiar and internal, you accept it without question. This is how illusions become beliefs. Over time, repeated thoughts shape your emotional responses, and those emotional responses reinforce the original thoughts. The cycle strengthens until the lie feels permanent. What makes this dangerous is that the mind's primary function is not truth, but survival. It seeks safety, not accuracy. It would rather keep you small and protected than allow you to grow and face uncertainty. The lies it tells are often designed to keep you within the boundaries of comfort. When you understand this, you stop blaming yourself and start training your awareness. The mind also uses memory as evidence. It collects past experiences and arranges them into a narrative that supports its current belief. If you once failed at something, the mind remembers the pain and uses it to predict the future. It tells you, this will happen again, even though the circumstances are different and you are not the same person anymore. Memory becomes a weapon against possibility. The mind presents these memories as facts, even though they are only fragments of history. When you accept them without challenge, you allow your past to dictate your future. This is one of the most powerful lies the mind tells. Another reason you believe the mind's lies is repetition. A thought repeated often enough begins to feel true, regardless of its accuracy. The mind repeats what it focuses on. If you dwell on doubt, it multiplies. If you dwell on fear, it grows. Over time, these thoughts become automatic. They surface without invitation. Because they appear quickly and consistently, you assume they must be valid. In reality, they are habits. And like all habits, they can be changed. Emotion strengthens belief. When a thought produces a strong emotional reaction, it feels significant. The mind interprets this emotional charge as proof that the thought is important or true. But emotion is not evidence. Emotion is simply the body responding to interpretation. The stronger the emotion, the more convincing the thought becomes. This is why anxiety feels so real, even when nothing is happening. The body reacts as if danger exists because the mind has described it in detail. The lie becomes lived experience. Social conditioning also shapes the lies you believe. From childhood, you absorb messages about who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible. These messages become part of your inner dialogue. You mistake them for your own thoughts, even though they were inherited from family, culture, and environment. The mind repeats these messages because they are familiar, not because they are true. Awareness allows you to separate what you learned from who you are becoming. The mind prefers consistency over accuracy. Once it builds a story about you, it looks for evidence to support it and ignores anything that contradicts it. This is how self-doubt survives even in the presence of success. The mind filters reality to protect its narrative. Recognizing this bias is the first step toward freedom. Fear makes the mind's lies louder. When you are afraid, the mind becomes hyperactive. It scans for danger, predicts failure, and magnifies risk. In this state, even the smallest thought can become overwhelming. Fear narrows perception and makes lies appear urgent and absolute. The mind also lies because it dislikes uncertainty. It would rather give you a false explanation than admit it does not know. These explanations create a sense of control, even when they are inaccurate. You accept them because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Another reason you believe your mind's lies is that you rarely pause to observe your thoughts. Without observation, thought becomes identity. You do not see the lie, you become it. Awareness creates space. Space creates choice. The mind is a tool, not a master. When you learn to question its stories, you regain control of your inner world. Lies lose their power when they are exposed to awareness. And when you stop believing everything you think, your life begins to change. Chapter 4. Breaking free from mental self-sabotage. Mental self-sabotage is the quiet force that undermines your goals, confidence, and future without your awareness. It operates through habits of thought that feel familiar, logical, and protective, yet slowly dismantle your progress from within. You may believe you are being cautious, realistic, or patient, but often these labels disguise fear, doubt, and avoidance. The mind constructs barriers using comfort as justification. It convinces you to wait, delay, retreat, and settle while presenting these decisions as sensible choices. Over time, these small acts of retreat compound into a life of unrealized potential. Breaking free begins with recognizing that your greatest obstacle is not lack of opportunity or ability, but the internal resistance that prevents you from using what you already possess. Self-sabotage thrives on emotional memory. The mind remembers past pain and uses it to limit present action. It warns you away from situations that resemble previous discomfort, even when growth depends on entering them. This mechanism is rooted in protection, but protection without awareness becomes prison. When your mind blocks every path that involves uncertainty, your world shrinks. The more you obey these signals, the stronger they become. Breaking the cycle requires you to step into controlled discomfort repeatedly, teaching your nervous system that uncertainty is survivable and progress is safe. Another form of self-sabotage is perfectionism. The mind convinces you that conditions must be ideal before you act. This keeps you waiting indefinitely. Perfectionism is not a desire for excellence. It is fear disguised as standards. By demanding flawless readiness, the mind avoids exposure to risk and judgment. Freedom comes when you accept progress over perfection and movement over delay. Negative self-talk is one of the most destructive tools of sabotage. The stories you tell yourself shape your emotional state and behavior. When your inner dialogue is harsh, doubtful, and limiting, your actions shrink to match it. Breaking free means consciously choosing language that supports growth instead of undermining it. Procrastination is another mask of self-sabotage. It feels like rest, but it is resistance. It postpones discomfort at the cost of progress. Each delay strengthens the habit of avoidance. Taking immediate action, even imperfectly, weakens this pattern and restores momentum. Comparison also fuels sabotage. Measuring yourself against others distorts your perception and drains your motivation. You lose focus on your own path. Breaking free requires returning attention to your own progress and potential. Self-sabotage thrives in distraction. When the mind is constantly stimulated, it avoids confronting deeper work. Silence exposes the truth of your direction. Clarity requires space. Fear of success can sabotage as much as fear of failure. Growth demands responsibility, visibility, and change. The mind may resist this expansion to preserve comfort. Awareness dismantles this resistance. Breaking free requires consistent self-observation. When you see a sabotaging pattern appear, you pause and choose differently. This conscious interruption weakens the old habit and builds a new one. Over time, these small choices create powerful transformation. You become less reactive, more intentional, and increasingly in control of your inner world. Mental self-sabotage fades when self-mastery grows. The more you align your thoughts with your goals, the more your life begins to rise. Freedom is not found by fighting your mind, but by training it. Chapter 5. Fear is a story your mind repeats. Fear is not an external force attacking you. It is a story your mind constructs and repeats until it feels real. The mind gathers fragments of past experience, imagined outcomes, and emotional memory, then arranges them into narratives that predict danger. These narratives are not based on current reality, but on the mind's need for certainty and control. When the mind cannot guarantee safety, it creates fear as a warning system. Over time, these warnings become automatic, arising even when no real threat exists. The repetition of these stories gives them authority. What you hear often enough, you begin to believe. Breaking free begins with recognizing that fear is not truth, but interpretation. The story feels convincing because it is familiar, not because it is accurate. The mind prefers familiar pain to unfamiliar growth. Fear-based stories protect what is known by discouraging what is unknown. The mind tells you that change is dangerous, that failure is permanent, and that discomfort should be avoided. These stories feel protective, yet they quietly prevent progress. They convince you to stay within old boundaries, even when those boundaries are suffocating your potential. Awareness dissolves this illusion. When you observe the fear instead of obeying it, the story begins to weaken. Fear becomes stronger when you identify with it. The moment you say, "I am afraid," instead of, "I am experiencing fear," you merge with the story. You become the emotion instead of the observer. This identification intensifies the experience and makes fear feel permanent. When you create distance through observation, fear loses its grip. You see it for what it is, a temporary mental event, not your identity. The mind exaggerates through fear. It magnifies risk, minimizes strength, and predicts disaster without evidence. This distortion feels real because emotion is involved. Emotion gives the story weight. The body responds as if the danger is present. This feedback loop between thought and body keeps fear alive. Breaking the loop requires conscious interruption. You challenge the story, slow your breathing, and bring attention to the present moment. Fear also thrives on the future. It rarely exists in the now. It lives in projections, imagined outcomes, and hypothetical disasters. When you anchor your attention in the present, the story weakens because the future has not yet arrived. The present moment exposes the mind's exaggeration. Repetition strengthens fear. Each time you replay the story, you reinforce its pathway in your brain. Over time, it becomes a habit. Habits can be unlearned. New mental patterns replace old ones through consistent awareness and conscious choice. Fear-based stories also limit identity. They tell you who you are and what you can handle. When you believe these limits, your behavior shrinks. When you question them, your world expands. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be ruled by its story. Action rewrites the narrative. Experience replaces imagination. The more you face fear, the weaker its stories become. Reality rarely matches the mind's predictions. Fear is a teacher, not a master. Its presence points toward growth. When you stop feeding the story, fear begins to fade. The mind becomes quiet when its stories are no longer believed. Freedom arrives when you recognize fear as a story, not a sentence. Chapter 6. The Prison of Negative Thinking. Negative thinking is not simply an unpleasant habit. It is a prison that quietly reshapes your entire life from the inside. Every negative thought you repeat becomes another bar in that prison, restricting your perspective, limiting your confidence, and narrowing your sense of possibility. The mind begins to interpret reality through a lens of doubt, fear, and pessimism, and over time that lens becomes your default view of the world. When this happens, you no longer see life as it is, but as your thoughts describe it. Opportunities appear threatening, change feels impossible, even small challenges become overwhelming. The prison of negative thinking does not require physical walls, because the mind supplies them continuously. Freedom begins with the awareness that your suffering is not caused by events alone, but by the internal narrative that interprets those events. Negative thinking strengthens itself through repetition. The more often you think a thought, the more real it feels, regardless of whether it is accurate. These repeated patterns form mental habits that operate automatically. You begin reacting to life before consciously choosing your response. This automatic negativity slowly drains your energy, motivation, and emotional stability. You may feel constantly tired, not because life is heavy, but because your mind is exhausting itself with unnecessary resistance. When you recognize this pattern, you regain the power to interrupt it. The prison tightens when negative thinking becomes identity. You stop saying, "I am experiencing negativity," and start saying, "This is just how I am." That shift locks the door. The moment you identify with a thought pattern, you stop questioning it, you defend it, you build your behavior around it. Breaking free requires separating who you are from what you think. Thoughts are events in the mind, not definitions of the self. Negative thinking also distorts time. The past becomes a source of regret. The future becomes a source of fear. The present becomes a place of dissatisfaction. You are never fully where you are, because your mind is constantly traveling to places that do not exist. This mental movement creates anxiety, sadness, and restlessness. Returning attention to the present weakens the prison's hold. The mind's negativity is often rooted in the desire for control. When you feel uncertain, the mind generates negative scenarios in an attempt to prepare, but preparation without action becomes worry. Worry feels productive, but it solves nothing. It only strengthens the prison. Negative thinking feeds emotional pain. It magnifies disappointment, intensifies stress, and prolongs suffering. When a difficult event occurs, negative thinking keeps it alive long after the moment has passed. The prison grows stronger when you consume information that reinforces your fears. Media, conversations, and environments shape thought patterns. You must become intentional about what you allow into your mind. Breaking free requires discipline, not suppression. You do not fight thoughts, you observe and redirect them. Each time you choose a constructive thought over a destructive one, you weaken the prison. Over time, your mind learns new patterns. Peace becomes more natural. Negative thinking loses its grip when awareness becomes constant. Freedom is built through daily mental training. You become calmer, clearer, and stronger. The prison door opens when you decide to step out. Your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Chapter 7. How to reclaim control of your mind. Reclaiming control of your mind begins with the realization that most of your suffering is created internally, not by the world itself. The mind constantly produces thoughts, and when these thoughts go unchecked, they dictate your emotions, your behavior, and your direction. Control does not mean silencing the mind. It means learning how to guide it. Awareness is the first tool of mastery. When you become conscious of what you are thinking, you create space between yourself and the thought. In that space, choice appears. That choice is where freedom begins. The mind becomes difficult to control when it is overstimulated. Endless information, noise, and distraction keep the mind reactive. Stillness becomes uncomfortable because it exposes the patterns you have been avoiding. To reclaim control, you must intentionally create silence. Even a few minutes of quiet observation each day begins retraining your attention. In silence, you start seeing your thoughts clearly instead of being carried by them. Breath is one of the most powerful tools for mental regulation. When you slow your breathing, you calm your nervous system. A calm nervous system creates a calm mind. This physical shift makes it easier to interrupt negative patterns. Control of the breath becomes control of the mind. Reclaiming control also requires discipline in what you consume. Your mind is shaped by what you feed it. Negative input strengthens negative patterns. Constructive input strengthens clarity and confidence. You must choose carefully what you allow into your awareness. Thoughts gain power when they go unquestioned. Challenge them. Ask whether they are useful, accurate, or necessary. Most destructive thoughts collapse under inspection. Consistency builds mastery. One moment of awareness helps, but daily practice transforms. Each time you redirect your attention, you strengthen your mental authority. Your environment influences your mind. Clean spaces, natural light, and order support clarity. Chaos feeds mental unrest. Movement stabilizes thinking. Physical activity releases emotional tension and resets the nervous system. Reclaiming control means taking responsibility. You stop blaming circumstances and start shaping your inner world. Patience is essential. The mind is trained slowly. There are no instant cures, only steady progress. As your control grows, your emotional life becomes calmer. You respond instead of react. Confidence increases because you trust your ability to manage your inner state. Clarity replaces confusion. Purpose replaces distraction. You begin directing your life instead of drifting through it. Control of your mind becomes the foundation of everything else you build. Chapter 8. Replace chaos with clarity. Chaos is not created by life itself, but by the absence of direction inside your mind. When your thoughts are scattered, your emotions become unstable, and your actions lose purpose. Clarity begins the moment you stop reacting to everything and start choosing what deserves your attention. The mind cannot hold clarity and chaos at the same time. One replaces the other. Every time you simplify your focus, you reduce emotional noise. Every time you reduce emotional noise, you increase your ability to think, decide, and act with strength. This is the foundation of control. A clear mind is not a lucky mind. It is a trained mind that has learned what to ignore and what to protect. When clarity enters your life, everything begins to align. Decisions become lighter. Problems become solvable. Pressure becomes manageable. The weight of confusion lifts because your mind finally knows where it is going. Clarity grows when you stop feeding the chaos. Most mental disorder is self-created through constant stimulation, unnecessary information, emotional overreaction, and uncontrolled thinking. Your mind becomes crowded because you allow everything inside. Reclaiming clarity means becoming selective. You do not give your energy to every thought, every problem, every distraction, and every opinion. You choose. That choice is power. When you stop trying to handle everything, your mind regains its natural order. Simplicity replaces overload. Purpose replaces pressure. Direction replaces doubt. The clearer your inner world becomes, the calmer your outer world feels. Chaos thrives when your goals are vague. A mind without direction becomes anxious because it has no reference point. Clarity begins when you decide what matters. When your values are defined, your decisions become easier. You stop wasting energy on things that do not move your life forward. You stop chasing what does not serve your growth. This focus creates emotional stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence strengthens action. Action builds momentum, and momentum transforms your future. Clarity also requires emotional honesty. Many people live in chaos because they avoid their own feelings. They distract themselves instead of facing discomfort. But the emotions you refuse to feel become the thoughts that disturb your mind. When you face what you feel, you free your mind from hidden pressure. Emotional awareness becomes mental clarity. You cannot think clearly when your emotions are ignored. You must listen to your inner world before you can organize it. Your environment shapes your mind. Chaos in your surroundings becomes chaos in your thoughts. When your space is ordered, your thinking becomes ordered. When your space is peaceful, your mind becomes peaceful. This is not coincidence. Your mind mirrors your environment. Creating external structure supports internal clarity. Clean space, simple routines, clear priorities. These small adjustments transform your mental state more than most people realize. Clarity grows through silence. When you remove noise, the mind resets. Silence reveals which thoughts matter and which ones fade when attention is removed. The more time you spend in quiet awareness, the less control your thoughts have over you. You begin choosing instead of reacting. Stillness becomes your teacher. Presence becomes your anchor. Clarity is built by consistency. One clear decision changes a moment. Repeated clear decisions change your life. Each day you choose focus over distraction. Your mind becomes sharper. Each day you choose discipline over comfort. Your life becomes stronger. The mind learns through repetition. Over time, clarity becomes your natural state. Chaos disappears when your attention becomes intentional. You no longer chase every impulse. You no longer drown in information. You protect your focus like a resource, because it is. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Clarity makes you powerful because it removes hesitation. When your mind is clear, your actions are decisive. Decisive action creates results. Results strengthen belief. Belief builds confidence. Confidence fuels further clarity. This upward cycle replaces the old loop of doubt and confusion. Clarity transforms relationships. You communicate better. You listen more deeply. You respond with intention instead of emotion. This emotional intelligence stabilizes your life. Clarity reshapes your future. You stop wondering and start building. You stop reacting and start directing. You stop surviving and start living. Chaos dissolves when purpose becomes stronger than fear. Purpose gives the mind something solid to hold on to. Fear loses its grip when direction is present. Clarity is not about controlling everything. It is about controlling what you give meaning to. Clarity reduces stress because it removes unnecessary conflict. You stop fighting invisible battles. You start solving real problems. Clarity teaches patience. You stop rushing. You start moving with intention. Clarity sharpens intuition. You sense what is right without overthinking. Clarity strengthens discipline. You no longer negotiate with your goals. Clarity makes effort feel lighter. You know why you are working. Clarity replaces emotional storms with steady focus. Clarity makes success predictable. Clarity makes peace possible. Clarity becomes your foundation. Clarity becomes your strength. Clarity becomes your direction. Clarity becomes your identity. Clarity becomes your life. Chapter 9. Build a mind that works for you. Chaos is not created by life itself, but by the absence of direction inside your mind. When your thoughts are scattered, your emotions become unstable, and your actions lose purpose. Clarity begins the moment you stop reacting to everything and start choosing what deserves your attention. The mind cannot hold clarity and chaos at the same time. One replaces the other. Every time you simplify your focus, you reduce emotional noise. Every time you reduce emotional noise, you increase your ability to think, decide, and act with strength. This is the foundation of control. A clear mind is not a lucky mind. It is a trained mind that has learned what to ignore and what to protect. When clarity enters your life, everything begins to align. Decisions become lighter, problems become solvable, pressure becomes manageable. The weight of confusion lifts because your mind finally knows where it is going. Clarity grows when you stop feeding the chaos. Most mental disorder is self-created through constant stimulation, unnecessary information, emotional overreaction, and uncontrolled thinking. Your mind becomes crowded because you allow everything inside. Reclaiming clarity means becoming selective. You do not give your energy to every thought, every problem, every distraction, and every opinion. You choose. That choice is power. When you stop trying to handle everything, your mind regains its natural order. Simplicity replaces overload. Purpose replaces pressure. Direction replaces doubt. The clearer your inner world becomes, the calmer your outer world feels. Chaos thrives when your goals are vague. A mind without direction becomes anxious because it has no reference point. Clarity begins when you decide what matters. When your values are defined, your decisions become easier. You stop wasting energy on things that do not move your life forward. You stop chasing what does not serve your growth. This focus creates emotional stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence strengthens action. Action builds momentum. and momentum transforms your future. Clarity also requires emotional honesty. Many people live in chaos because they avoid their own feelings. They distract themselves instead of facing discomfort. But the emotions you refuse to feel become the thoughts that disturb your mind. When you face what you feel, you free your mind from hidden pressure. Emotional awareness becomes mental clarity. You cannot think clearly when your emotions are ignored. You must listen to your inner world before you can organize it. Your environment shapes your mind. Chaos in your surroundings becomes chaos in your thoughts. When your space is ordered, your thinking becomes ordered. When your space is peaceful, your mind becomes peaceful. This is not coincidence. Your mind mirrors your environment. Creating external structure supports internal clarity. Clean space, simple routines, clear priorities. These small adjustments transform your mental state more than most people realize. Clarity grows through silence. When you remove noise, the mind resets. Silence reveals which thoughts matter and which ones fade when attention is removed. The more time you spend in quiet awareness, the less control your thoughts have over you. You begin choosing instead of reacting. Stillness becomes your teacher. Presence becomes your anchor. Clarity is built by consistency. One clear decision changes a moment. Repeated clear decisions change your life. Each day you choose focus over distraction. Your mind becomes sharper. Each day you choose discipline over comfort. Your life becomes stronger. The mind learns through repetition. Over time, clarity becomes your natural state. Chaos disappears when your attention becomes intentional. You no longer chase every impulse. You no longer drown in information. You protect your focus like a resource, because it is. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Clarity makes you powerful because it removes hesitation. When your mind is clear, your actions are decisive. Decisive action creates results. Results strengthen belief. Belief builds confidence. Confidence fuels further clarity. This upward cycle replaces the old loop of doubt and confusion. Clarity transforms relationships. You communicate better. You listen more deeply. You respond with intention instead of emotion. This emotional intelligence stabilizes your life. Clarity reshapes your future. You stop wandering and start building. You stop reacting and start directing. You stop surviving and start living. Chaos dissolves when purpose becomes stronger than fear. Purpose gives the mind something solid to hold on to. Fear loses its grip when direction is present. Clarity is not about controlling everything. It is about controlling what you give meaning to. Clarity reduces stress because it removes unnecessary conflict. You stop fighting invisible battles. You start solving real problems. Clarity teaches patience. You stop rushing. You start moving with intention. Clarity sharpens intuition. You sense what is right without overthinking. Clarity strengthens discipline. You no longer negotiate with your goals. Clarity makes effort feel lighter. You know why you are working. Clarity replaces emotional storms with steady focus. Clarity makes success predictable. Clarity makes peace possible. Clarity becomes your foundation. Clarity becomes your strength. Clarity becomes your direction. Clarity becomes your identity. Clarity becomes your life. A mind that works for you must develop focus as a core skill. Focus is not something you either have or lack. It is something you train. Each time you resist distraction and return your attention to what matters, you strengthen your ability to concentrate. Over time, this training compounds. Tasks that once felt exhausting become manageable. Projects that once felt overwhelming become achievable. Focus gives your mind a sense of control, and that control reduces anxiety. Anxiety thrives in scattered attention. Focus dissolves it. When your mind learns to stay with one thing at a time, your energy becomes more efficient. You stop leaking effort in every direction. This efficiency increases your confidence because you see real progress instead of constant motion without results. A supportive mind is rooted in self-awareness. You cannot improve what you do not notice. Becoming aware of your mental patterns allows you to catch unhelpful thoughts before they shape your behavior. Awareness creates space. In that space, you choose differently. Over time, this choice becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Identity becomes destiny. This is the architecture of change. A mind that works for you does not fight reality. It works with it. Resistance drains energy. Acceptance redirects it. When you stop arguing with what is and start working with what is, your mind becomes more efficient. Problems are no longer emotional burdens. They become engineering challenges. This perspective turns frustration into problem solving. Training your mind also means training your reactions. When something goes wrong, your first response determines your emotional trajectory. A trained mind pauses, breathes, and responds intentionally. An untrained mind reacts automatically. This difference separates emotional stability from emotional chaos. Your mind becomes stronger when you develop patience. Impatience creates stress because it demands immediate results. Patience allows progress to unfold. This calm persistence makes your mind reliable under pressure. Building a working mind also requires physical alignment. Sleep, nutrition, and movement directly affect your thinking. A neglected body produces a chaotic mind. A supported body produces clarity. Your mind becomes trustworthy when you keep commitments to yourself. Every promise you keep strengthens self-respect. Every promise you break weakens it. Self-respect stabilizes your inner world. A working mind simplifies life. You stop chasing unnecessary complexity. You choose clarity over confusion. Over time, this clarity compounds into peace. Peace becomes your baseline. When your mind works for you, life becomes something you build, not something you survive. Chapter 10. Train your focus. Transform your life. Training your focus is one of the most powerful decisions you can make because focus is the gateway to every form of progress. A distracted mind cannot build anything meaningful. It can only react, consume, and drift. When you train your focus, you reclaim control of your time, your energy, and your direction. Most people live as prisoners of their attention, pulled by every notification, emotion, and impulse. A focused person lives by choice. That choice shapes their entire life. Focus allows you to stay with a problem long enough to solve it, with a goal long enough to reach it, and with yourself long enough to grow. Without focus, effort becomes scattered and results remain shallow. With focus, even small effort compounds into powerful transformation. Focus is not a personality trait, it is a trained skill. Every time you resist distraction and return to your task, you strengthen your mental muscle. Over weeks and months, that muscle becomes your default state. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Challenges that once created anxiety become engaging. Your confidence grows because you are no longer controlled by your mind. You are directing it. Focus simplifies life. It removes unnecessary noise. It reveals what matters. When your attention becomes stable, your emotions become stable. When your emotions stabilize, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your life transforms. A focused mind creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief strengthens action. Action fuels further momentum. This cycle reshapes your future. The transformation does not come from doing more things, but from doing fewer things with greater depth and consistency. Focus teaches you to work with precision instead of pressure. You stop exhausting yourself with constant movement and start building real progress. This shift alone separates those who merely stay busy from those who build extraordinary lives. Training your focus begins with eliminating unnecessary input. Your mind is shaped by what you allow into it. Endless scrolling, constant noise, and emotional overreaction weaken attention. Silence restores it. When you create space for quiet concentration, your mind begins to heal from overstimulation. In that space, clarity emerges. Your goals become visible. Your priorities sharpen. Your energy returns. Focus also requires structure. Clear goals, scheduled work periods, and defined boundaries protect your attention. Without boundaries, your focus is constantly invaded. When you defend your attention, you defend your future. Each focused session strengthens your self-respect. You stop breaking promises to yourself. You become reliable. Reliability builds confidence. Confidence builds courage. A focused life feels lighter because you are no longer scattered. You move with purpose instead of panic. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of drift. When you train your focus, you do not simply improve your productivity. You transform your identity. You become someone who finishes, builds, and grows. That is how focus transforms your life. A trained focus strengthens emotional control because the mind no longer jumps between thoughts and feelings without direction. When attention is steady, emotions become manageable. You stop drowning in reaction and start operating with intention. This emotional stability allows you to face challenges without collapsing under pressure. When life becomes difficult, your focus holds you in place. You do not scatter, you do not panic. You remain grounded and continue moving forward. This stability becomes one of your greatest advantages in a world driven by distraction. Focus transforms effort into impact. Many people work hard but see little progress because their effort is fragmented. When your attention is concentrated, each action carries greater weight. Your work becomes deeper. Your learning becomes faster. Your improvement becomes visible. You are no longer spinning your wheels. You are moving forward. This efficiency creates momentum that fuels further growth. A focused mind also reduces fear. Fear thrives in scattered thinking because the mind constantly jumps to imagined futures. When your attention is anchored in the present, fear weakens. The present moment exposes fear's exaggeration. You realize that you can handle what is in front of you. This realization builds confidence. Training focus also builds patience. You stop seeking instant results and start respecting the process. This patience allows long-term goals to survive emotional storms. You continue even when progress feels slow because your attention remains on the path, not the outcome. Focus sharpens problem solving. When your mind stays with a challenge, solutions appear. You stop escaping difficulty and start mastering it. Each solved problem strengthens your belief in your ability to handle complexity. A focused life creates boundaries. You protect your time, your energy, and your attention. You stop allowing distractions to define your day. This control creates freedom. Focus deepens relationships. When you are present, people feel seen, heard, and valued. Your connections become meaningful instead of superficial. A focused mind is less reactive to external noise. Opinions lose their power. Comparisons fade. You become anchored in your own direction. Training focus is training self-respect. You treat your goals as important. You treat your life as meaningful. As focus strengthens, clarity grows. As clarity grows, your life begins to align with your highest intentions. Focus does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. Chapter 11. Silence the voice that holds you back. A trained focus strengthens emotional control because the mind no longer jumps between thoughts and feelings without direction. When attention is steady, emotions become manageable. You stop drowning in reaction and start operating with intention. This emotional stability allows you to face challenges without collapsing under pressure. When life becomes difficult, your focus holds you in place. You do not scatter. You do not panic. You remain grounded and continue moving forward. This stability becomes one of your greatest advantages in a world driven by distraction. Focus transforms effort into impact. Many people work hard but see little progress because their effort is fragmented. When your attention is concentrated, each action carries greater weight. Your work becomes deeper. Your learning becomes faster. Your improvement becomes visible. You are no longer spinning your wheels. You are moving forward. This efficiency creates momentum that fuels further growth. A focused mind also reduces fear. Fear thrives in scattered thinking because the mind constantly jumps to imagined futures. When your attention is anchored in the present, fear weakens. The present moment exposes fear's exaggeration. You realize that you can handle what is in front of you. This realization builds confidence. Training focus also builds patience. You stop seeking instant results and start respecting the process. This patience allows long-term goals to survive emotional storms. You continue even when progress feels slow because your attention remains on the path, not the outcome. Focus sharpens problem solving. When your mind stays with a challenge, solutions appear. You stop escaping difficulty and start mastering it. Each solved problem strengthens your belief in your ability to handle complexity. A focused life creates boundaries. You protect your time, your energy, and your attention. You stop allowing distractions to define your day. This control creates freedom. Focus deepens relationships. When you are present, people feel seen, heard, and valued. Your connections become meaningful instead of superficial. A focused mind is less reactive to external noise. Opinions lose their power. Comparisons fade. You become anchored in your own direction. Training focus is training self-respect. You treat your goals as important. You treat your life as meaningful. As focus strengthens, clarity grows. As clarity grows, your life begins to align with your highest intentions. Focus does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. Chapter 12. Become the master of your inner world. Mastering your inner world begins with understanding that your thoughts, emotions, and reactions are not random events. They are patterns shaped by years of conditioning, experience, and habit. When you live without awareness of these patterns, they quietly direct your life. You wake up in emotional states you didn't choose, react in ways you don't understand, and repeat behaviors you promised yourself you would change. Mastery begins when you stop letting your inner world operate on autopilot and start guiding it with intention. This is not about controlling every thought, but about developing a steady awareness that allows you to choose your responses instead of being driven by impulse. That awareness becomes the foundation of emotional strength, mental clarity, and personal power. Your inner world becomes powerful when it is organized. Disorder inside creates chaos outside. When your thoughts are scattered, your decisions weaken. When your emotions run unchecked, your actions lose stability. Mastery requires structure. You create that structure by defining your values, your goals, and your priorities. These become the framework that holds your inner world together. With that framework in place, your mind begins to cooperate instead of conflict. You no longer feel pulled in every direction because you know where you are going and why. Purpose organizes emotion. Clarity organizes thought. A master of the inner world learns emotional regulation. You do not suppress your emotions, but you no longer allow them to control your behavior. You observe them, understand their message, and decide how to respond. This skill alone transforms relationships, work, and self-respect. Emotional stability creates trust in yourself. When you trust your ability to handle your emotions, you stop fearing life. Self-talk becomes a central tool of mastery. The language you use internally becomes the environment your mind lives in. When your self-talk is destructive, your inner world becomes hostile. When it is constructive, your mind becomes a place of support. Mastery requires conscious choice of words. You speak to yourself with discipline, honesty, and encouragement. Your inner world is also shaped by attention. Whatever you focus on grows. When you feed your mind with fear, negativity, and distraction, those patterns dominate. When you focus on growth, learning, and progress, your inner world evolves. Mastery is the art of directing attention intentionally. Silence is one of the most powerful tools of mastery. In silence, you observe your patterns clearly. You see what needs to change. Stillness reveals truth. Consistency builds authority over the inner world. One moment of awareness helps. Daily practice transforms. Over time, your mind becomes calmer. Your emotions stabilize. Your decisions sharpen. You no longer feel controlled by your inner world. You lead it. That leadership changes everything. Mastery of the inner world requires responsibility. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or the past for your emotional state. Instead, you accept that while you cannot control everything that happens, you can control how you interpret it and how you respond. This shift from victimhood to ownership transforms your internal experience. The mind becomes stronger when it is trusted with responsibility. You begin to see challenges not as threats, but as training. Each difficulty becomes an opportunity to strengthen your emotional muscles. A master of the inner world develops patience. Impatience creates emotional instability because it demands immediate results from processes that require time. Patience allows growth to unfold naturally. When you stop rushing yourself, you stop punishing yourself. This gentleness does not weaken you, it strengthens your endurance. A patient mind remains calm under pressure. Discipline anchors mastery. You cannot rely on mood to govern your behavior. A disciplined inner world operates from commitment. You act because your goals matter, not because you feel motivated. Over time, this consistency builds deep confidence. Awareness of triggers becomes essential. When you recognize what activates emotional reactions, you gain the power to respond intentionally. This awareness dissolves reactivity. Your inner world becomes clearer as you release resentment. Holding emotional debt poisons your mental space. Forgiveness frees energy for growth. Mastery requires letting go of the need for external approval. You stop outsourcing your worth. Validation becomes internal. Your emotional resilience increases. You recover faster. You stay steady longer. Your inner world becomes peaceful without becoming passive. You begin moving through life with calm authority. Your presence becomes powerful because it is grounded. You are no longer controlled by storms inside. In the end, the greatest battle of your life is not against the world, your past, or your circumstances. It is against the voice inside your own head. Every belief you accept, every fear you obey, every thought you repeat becomes the direction your life moves in. When you stop letting your mind run on autopilot, you stop living on autopilot. You are not broken. You are not weak. You have simply been listening to the wrong guide. The moment you begin to observe your thoughts instead of surrendering to them, everything changes. Clarity replaces chaos. Confidence replaces doubt. And the life you once believed was impossible slowly becomes real. Remember this: your mind can be your greatest prison or your greatest weapon. The choice is yours. Take back control, reclaim your focus, and step into a future no longer controlled by the thoughts that once held you captive.